Hey, everybody on YouTube, welcome. You've joined us as we've been live on Facebook and Rumble already this morning, but I just want to patch you in as you're watching after the fact. We're going to catch up on the rest of the opening statements for the Arizona versus Michael Turney trial. We're picking up in the middle of the defense opening statements. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start that for your listening and viewing pleasure.
The recording.
We'll catch up there. Thanks.
It would record these calls until that tape ran out. And you'll hear from Detective Anderson and Detective Summershoe, who went through a lot of these tapes, that a lot of these calls just ended abruptly. They were being recorded and then they stopped because the technology isn't the same as today, where you could just have it recording forever on a digital space. That was the same thing.
This is the stepfather trial.
The video recorder will be this system that had two cameras set up. One was in the carport looking out towards the front door, or the door that they use is the front door, the carport door, and out onto the main street. The other one had a view from the vent out through, and you could catch the Arcadia door coming in and the couch where you saw in that video.
I like his delivery style.
And you will learn
already.
the same thing, and you'll hear Sarah talk about it, that this system was always playing. You could see the recordings. You could go into the room and look at the monitor and see what the video camera was showing.
This is
but
opening,
it always
Kurt.
didn't record. It wasn't recording 24 hours a day because it required these 8-hour VHS tapes. And so you would have to set it. You would have to actually set the recording for that to work. So it always didn't capture every single thing that happened 24 hours a day.
If this guy could set a VCR to record, he's a superhero. Nobody can do that.
You will learn that when that call came in, Michael immediately recognized that voice as Alyssa's. The call was very brief. Michael, maybe thinking that she was around, he got up, went outside. He was looking, driving around, looking for her, looking at different payphones, different things in the area that maybe she called from. You will learn that he used to be a police officer in the 70s, worked for Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Some of his training was that when this happened, maybe people are close in proximity when they make a call like this. So that's why he thought maybe she was around, and that's why he took off and went out. You will learn that he immediately told Sarah and her friend Shay about this call. Shay, a friend of Alyssa's, was staying with them because Michael was, you'll hear he was going around doing a lot of things, and Sarah was 12 years old. So Shay was in and out of the house helping watch and stay with him while he was looking for Alyssa. You will learn that he did everything in his power to try to get that call from Quest. He called them. He was on the phone with customer service. He did everything to get that call, and they told him he could not do it without a subpoena. So he contacted Phoenix Police Department, asked them to intervene. They were not willing or weren't able to help. He then spoke with the sergeant. He then spoke with someone else. Nobody would help him get this call. So he didn't let it lie. You're going to learn that what he did was he then used some of his own money. He sued Quest to try to get this number. He filed a lawsuit, got the number. You'll learn it took about 6 weeks. He got this, someone at the end of June, beginning of July, he got this phone number. It had a California number on it, and you'll learn that he kept calling that number, and someone finally answered. He was able to find out where that location was, and he went out to that location on several occasions. He went out to California to look for her on several different occasions. You will learn that as this case progressed, Michael was the only one that was pushing this case when it started. In 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, he was pressuring PPD. He was calling sergeants. He was writing letters to chief of police. He called the FBI. He called his congressman. He was calling all sorts of people to try to get attention to this case, and no one would investigate it. He was putting in his time and his money searching for Alyssa. He even contacted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This is a group that PPD sometimes they recommend to families because they are a national organization that can get the word out a little bit better.
Thanks, Rudy, for the super chat.
He contacted them over the years and tried to get her name out there, trying to put information into this. He even helped work with them to get a picture of Alyssa's face on a NASCAR hood. That was something that they were doing back then. They would put these missing children on the top of one of the racers' car to get exposure. And he got Alyssa's picture on the top of one of the race cars in a race. He was doing all of this, and nobody would help him. You will hear that Detective Schonfelder was assigned the case a few days after, and he essentially treated this as a runaway. Didn't want to listen. He didn't want to take any information. He would get information. There's not a lot of reports. Detective Schonfelder did not keep a lot of records of his interactions with anyone at that time, but he did keep some of the documents that he got from Mr. Turney over the year or so that he was investigating, but he never followed up on any of them. Then fast forward to about 2003 to 2004, Detective Murphy became assigned the case. Same thing. You will hear that he went at great lengths to communicate with her, try to get her to do investigation. He was giving her information. The state talked about these burned up bodies and other things to get dental and DNA. That was Mr. Turney that was getting that information to Phoenix Police Department. He was working with them to try to get the case going. You'll see that up until about 2008, 2009, he was one of the only ones champion for Alyssa and was trying to get this case out, calling the FBI, calling these people, trying to get them to investigate, and no one would investigate. Then fast forward to 2008, 2009, when Detective Anderson and Detective Summershoe were assigned. They started doing interviews, and they got tunnel vision. They were locked into one person and one person only, and that was Mr. Turney. And for over a decade, they extensively and exclusively overlooked evidence and just looked at him, ignoring all the things that he did, ignoring all the stuff because they had their belief on what happened. And you will learn that this entire case is about belief, speculation, and conjecture. There's no evidence. They can't tell you where Alyssa died. They can't tell you how she died. And frankly, they can't even tell you if she died. They believe she did, but there's no proof. And despite over a decade of extensive investigation, they never found a single piece of evidence to tie Mr. Turney to this crime. As you will see, as the evidence comes through, there is nothing. There is nothing that links him to this crime. You will not hear from a single witness in this trial that will tell you what happened to Alyssa.
This is going to be a tough one to
This trial is about Michael Turney finally getting his day in court. A court that follows the laws of the American justice system, not the court of public opinions. The evidence will show that rather than conduct a fair investigation to find out the truth of Alyssa's runaway and subsequent disappearance, Phoenix PD did basically nothing for 8 years until Detective Anderson and Detective Summershoe were assigned. And then it was tunnel vision. They had one person and one person only, and they still found no evidence. You will learn that in 2000, after the pressure of some media, TikTok, stuff like that, they finally charged Mr. Turney with this crime, despite the lack of any physical evidence or, frankly, any real evidence at all. No new evidence from 2001 to 2019 that links Mr. Turney to this crime. But yet here we are. So what happened to Alyssa? Was she killed? Did she run away and get caught up in human trafficking? Did she just want to leave and have a different life and just start it over? We don't know. All we can tell you is that on May 17th, 2001, that was the last time Mr. Turney ever saw his daughter. And he looked for her for over 7 or 8 years, spending his own money, his own time to try to find her. He spent countless years of his life in an effort to find Alyssa. He complained. He called Congress. He complained to police detectives. He complained to police chiefs. He wrote letters. He did all of this. Very odd for someone who killed someone. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the different types of evidence in Arizona. If you remember, during voir dire, we talked about it a little bit. Mr. Berdino told you
Keeps
a
walking
story
away
or
from the mic.
an example of circumstantial evidence about rain. That you obviously you don't see the rain, but you walk outside, stuff's wet, the car's wet, the grass is wet, the street's wet. You can deduce from those other clues that it rained. So, absolutely right. In Arizona, circumstantial and direct evidence are both allowed. And you as the jury, you get to give any weight to any piece of evidence that you feel is important. Now, I want to give you an example about circumstantial evidence too, just to kind of bear how circumstantial evidence can sometimes not lead to what you think it does. So,
I'm going to object. This is argument, Your Honor.
sustained.
Sustained.
You will find that the state's entire case is based on circumstantial evidence, based on speculation, based on belief, with no actual facts. The evidence will show that the lack of evidence that the state is presenting, that you remember, you took the jury, you took an oath to keep an open mind and listen to all the evidence and decide whether the state has met their burden. And at the end of the trial, I will come back up here and ask you to find him not guilty.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
The objection
The
shut him
state may
down.
call its first witness.
The state calls Miss Shay Masterson.
Shay Masterson. There's also some clarification from ABC, from our pool media source, that the camera and the videos, the images that are being shown in the courtroom on the screen, the cameraman wasn't sure if they were allowed to show them or not. There's been
Ma'am, if you'll
clarification
please
they
come
can
forward,
show that, so we will
up to
be
me,
seeing that.
And the clerk will get your
going
name
on,
from you and
like from
swear
this
you
point
in.
on. And by that I mean starting next week.
If you want to come this way, that's okay. That's okay. Hold on. Right up to me. That's okay.
She's like, I don't know how to get to you, Your
That's
Honor.
okay. You come right up to me and then turn towards her. She's going to get some information from you and then swear you in.
Wow, she gives her name here, which we do not get to hear. So that makes it a little harder for us to document. Oh, there goes Elmo. Just got folded down into nothing and turned off.
And now if you'll take a walk up that ramp and then have a seat on the witness stand here to my right.
It's like a maze. I mean, I think it's probably wheelchair accessible, which is important.
There's a microphone there that's bent away from you. If you can bend it towards you and just try to speak into that. Thank you.
No wall of
Counsel,
evidence
you
or
may
box fort in
proceed
this
with
trial.
your direct examination of the witness whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Judge.
Hey, Wallflower, welcome.
Can you please introduce yourself to the court?
I'm Shay Masterson.
Okay.
She's nervous.
And Shay, at times we may cover stuff that's a little bit emotional for you. If you need to take a break, just let us know. How did you know Alyssa?
I grew up with Alyssa from the time I was 2 or 3.
Okay. And did you know some of Alyssa's family members as well?
Yes.
Who did you know that were in her family?
I knew her mom and her stepdad, as well as her brothers and her sister.
All right.
That's everybody.
Now, you said you knew her at quite a young age? Mm-hmm. And the family?
Was that a yes?
Oh, sorry, yes.
And,
Yes, and the family.
Is that the judge
That's
that
a
said
good
was that a yes?
reminder. Mm-hms and ums are not picked up well.
Okay.
So when a question's asked, if it's a yes, just say yes, say no, and it'll make it easier for the court reporter.
I will.
Also, in that vein, if I ask a bad question that you don't understand, don't be afraid to tell me that's a bad question. Lawyers sometimes do that. Just ask me to rephrase it, and I'll try to do my
Crank
best
the
to
audio
say it
here.
in a way that is easier for you to understand.
Okay, thank you.
So you said you lived with, you knew them at a young age, and you knew a number of the family members.
Yes.
Do you remember the houses that you knew them at or visited?
Yes, I lived next door to them when they lived on the Villarita house. I spent time in the other house in that same neighborhood that they lived in. I spent a little bit of time in the house in the Paradise Valley area, and a bit when Alyssa lived with her two brothers in an apartment.
Okay. So it's fair to say that you knew Alyssa while she lived at least 3 different houses, including and then also an apartment with her brothers?
Correct.
Do you remember who those brothers are that she lived with?
That was John and Mike.
Okay. And we'll come back to them a little bit. But did you spend time with Alyssa and her family at their house?
Yes.
Did you spend time with them in social settings?
Yes. Most of that was at their house, though.
All right. Did you know Alyssa at school at all?
The last time we went to school together was elementary school.
And can you please explain, was there an age difference between you and Alyssa?
Yeah, Alyssa was about 2.5 years older than me and 2 years ahead of me in school.
Okay. And you said you knew Sarah?
Correct.
And how old was Sarah in relation to you?
About 2 years younger than me and 2 years behind me in school.
Okay.
Thank you, Miss Ikamo. I appreciate the super chat. Congrats on the whale.
So you noted some time that you spent with the family, but it was mostly at their residence. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's an interesting friendship. Generally, kids that age, they
Can
sort of
you tell
associate
us
with people who are at their school.
a little bit about Alyssa, the person that you knew?
She was really lighthearted and very friendly and social with people. She was smart and funny, and could be mean sometimes, like most girls.
Did you see Alyssa interact with Sarah at all?
Yes.
They had a rough
And
relationship,
you need to take a break?
No.
Sarah and Alyssa.
And what interactions did you observe with Sarah?
I mean, just everyday interactions between two sisters. They had a sibling rivalry type of dynamic. A lot of sister bickering and whatnot, but also a lot of love.
Okay. And did you see interactions between Alyssa and her father?
Yes.
And was the interactions between Alyssa and her father contentious?
Yes.
Was it a difficult relationship based on your observations?
Yes.
And did it appear to be a troubled relationship based on your observations?
Yes.
Did
is
you
this leading
observe
a little bit?
the way that Alyssa's father, the defendant, treated Sarah?
Yes.
And what was that treatment like?
It was not contentious and not strained,
Sarah was the
and
favorite
it
child.
tended to be she was the baby and his only birth daughter, and so she was very much doted on by him, at least in the early years. I can't speak to later on.
So is it fair to say that the way that the defendant treated Alyssa was different than the way the defendant treated Sarah?
Yes.
Do you see the defendant in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you please state where he is seated and what he is wearing?
He's sitting in a wheelchair, it looks like, to the side of a desk, and I think it's a blue suit.
Thank you. Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
Are you aware of recordings that were occurring at the Turney household?
Yes.
And what recordings were you aware of?
I know from a very early time, there was recordings of telephone calls that would come in and out of the house. And then I know that there was some audio and or video in the house later on.
Thank you, Aaron Patterson.
So, you are aware of phone conversations being recorded?
Mm-hmm.
Was that a yes?
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's a yes.
The judge
And you were aware of some type of surveillance system that was recording
Yes.
occurrences in the house?
Yes.
Okay, let me just say that
Another
that's
thing we have to
not
be
normal.
careful about is not to speak over each other, because that can also be difficult for our court reporter to take down. So I apologize if I did that. Now, were you aware if the defendant would record just conversations between people that were not on the phone and were not video surveillance?
Not conversation specifically, but that there was recording happening at times in the house. I don't know if that answers your question.
That's fine. So you're aware, basically you're aware of general recordings, both surveillance, phone, that were occurring in the house and on the phone.
Yes.
Can you tell us, well, when you were led up to Alyssa's disappearance and when she was gone, how much time were you spending at Alyssa's house in the weeks and months leading up to that?
Not very much. They had moved farther away from where I lived at that point.
All right. And however, were you aware of who lived at that house?
To my knowledge, it was her sister and her stepdad, and Alyssa. Sorry.
So at that point, there was no brothers that were living there?
Not that I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean there weren't.
And how did you become aware that Alyssa was gone?
Mike told me, the defendant.
So when you say Mike, are you referring to the defendant?
Yes.
She literally said,
in case we do that again. And what did you do based on his information to you that Alyssa had gone missing?
So he took me to their house where I spent time with Sarah.
Maisla,
Do
thank
you remember
Congrats on the whale.
how close in time from Alyssa going missing to you being told of Alyssa's disappearance?
It was that day or the next day.
And then you stated that you came over to their house and you were staying there watching Sarah?
On and off, yes.
Do you remember about how old Sarah was at that time?
So I believe she had just finished 6th grade. Or maybe 7th, around 12, give or take.
Okay.
Counsel, could you please approach off the record? You can just come right up.
Ooh, judge calls a sidebar. Maybe he's like, I'm not sure if you can object or not, but you're leading on all your questions. We do have a cough counter running. Actually, let me turn it on. I haven't heard any today. Maybe REQA law is in full effect. Let's see. Let's do a little super screen, super source. There's our cough counter. I show her at 33. Mrs. R.A. kept us up to date on that one. You guys
try to remember where I left off, but I
Before the
believe
judge
we were
rudely interrupted me.
You had gone to the place where Alyssa lived. You had, based on information provided by the defendant, that she was missing, and you were watching Sarah.
Yes.
This is
Do you
prosecutor
remember
questioning. Yes.
what was occurring during that time while you were at the house?
Usually me and Sarah would be hanging out, watching movies, playing games, and Mike would be coming in, the defendant would be coming and going.
Okay. Were you aware, did the defendant tell you at some point that Alyssa had called the house?
Yes.
Do you remember how long after Alyssa had disappeared that occurred?
Maybe a week. It was pretty early on after.
All right. And were you at the house when that call came in?
So I believe it was at night, and he told us the next day, from what I remember. Me and Sarah.
And based on what you said, does that mean you were sleeping over there as well?
Yes.
Okay.
She was Alyssa's friend and sleeping over at Alyssa's house.
And while
when
you
Alyssa
were
wasn't
there, was it just the defendant,
friends with Sarah as
yourself, and Sarah
From what I can remember, yes.
that was actually staying there?
That's what I remember.
Okay. Did he tell you any specifics about that phone call?
Not that I recall.
And how long did you continue to stay with the defendant and Sarah?
I would come and go that summer. I don't remember exactly, how long or for when. I know that there were multiple occasions during that summer for maybe a couple days at a time, and then not after that summer.
One more here.
Samantha Terry is doing an awesome job keeping everyone updated over on Facebook. Absolutely incredible. Wish we could all be in the same place. Hopefully very soon we'll get that sorted out. We'll be back on YouTube as well. Might keep these same channels running as well.
And just because it came up, you stated that the defendant's in a wheelchair now. Back when you were staying at that house, was the defendant need the assistance of a wheelchair at that time?
No.
No additional questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Okay, I just have to say from the onset, this guy might be as guilty as sin, but this is going to be a tough case to prove where, the evidence...
Cross-examination, Ms.
sound
Hicks.
Doesn't sound like they have a lot from the opening statements. Can we get beyond reasonable doubt here? Especially with all his actions that he took that somebody who was not guilty might also
ma'am.
take. Yeah, it could have been planned that way, but...
Ms. Masterson, out of all of Alyssa's friends, you knew her the longest.
I believe so.
You knew her, you met her in 1989.
Yes.
Do you need a moment?
No.
Okay. You were friends with her until her disappearance in 2001.
Yes.
Okay. And you testified on direct that you talked a little less frequently in the year leading up to her disappearance.
Yes.
But you were still best friends.
I still considered her my best friend, yes.
Your families had known each other for years.
Yes.
And Mike actually called you on the night that Alyssa went missing.
I believe it was that night.
And he was looking for Alyssa.
That is what I was told, yes.
But Alyssa wasn't there.
No.
And so at that point, you went over to the house, the Turney's house.
Yes.
Okay. And you were there to babysit Sarah.
Yes.
You stayed there on and off all summer.
Yes.
So you saw what was happening in the house in the days after Alyssa's disappearance.
Yes.
I mean, you were there, right?
It's been over 20 years. So yes, the details are fuzzy.
Yes, understandable. And ma'am, if there's anything, when I'm asking questions that you don't remember, let me know and we can assist you with a police report or something like that.
Okay.
But you had mentioned to the police that Mike was obsessed with finding Alyssa.
Yeah, it seemed that way that summer
It's all he talked about.
that I can recall.
He spent most of his time trying to find her.
He spent most of his time away from the house, saying that he was trying to find her.
Okay. He took trips to California.
I believe so.
He searched the neighborhood.
That was my understanding.
He talked to Alyssa's friends.
I believe so.
And, ma'am, there was also a point where he asked Alyssa's friends to write letters.
Yes.
And you told the police that these letters were to prompt the police to look for Alyssa.
That's from my recollection, yeah.
Okay. And you wrote a letter as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Was that a yes?
Sorry, yes.
You described Alyssa as trusting.
Yes.
You expressed concern that she could be with an older man.
Yes, that's what I had been told.
You expressed concern in the letter that she was kidnapped. Or
Possibly.
That she could have been kidnapped. That someone was hurting her.
Possibly.
And as far as you know, at that time, the police hadn't been looking into Alyssa's disappearance.
No.
In your letter, you said Alyssa was in danger.
I believed so.
She hadn't contacted anyone.
Correct.
This was very concerning.
Yes.
Okay. Something was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Your letter communicated a sense of urgency.
Yes.
Your letter didn't say, Alyssa is a responsible person.
No.
Your letter didn't say Alyssa is capable of taking care of herself.
No.
Because the letter was meant to get the police to start looking for Alyssa.
That was what I thought, yes.
Now, Ms. Masterson, you testified on direct that you were actually at the house on May 24th, 2001.
Sometime in the days after, yes.
And you testified that you were there when, or at least you were sleeping, when there was a phone call received from California.
That's what I remember.
Now, this was about a week after Alyssa's disappearance.
I believe so.
And you heard about it as soon as you woke up.
I think so.
Mike said it was Alyssa.
Yes.
And there was some time after this phone call was received that Mike tried to get more information about this phone call.
Yes.
Mike had a fight with the phone company to get information about this call.
Yes.
He was on the phone with customer service.
I believe so.
He tried to get a subpoena for records.
Yes.
The contrast between what this judge allows
And eventually,
what the previous
he
judge
sued the
allowed
phone
is
company.
Stark. These are statements.
That's what I understand, yes.
Okay.
No
He got
question
the
mark on that.
records,
I believe so.
and the call was from California.
Yes.
Now, ma'am, you had mentioned that you spent quite some time over at the Turney household.
In my life, yes.
You knew Sarah.
Yes.
You babysat her for a summer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And Alyssa is older than Sarah.
Correct.
By about, is it 5 years?
4 to 5 years, something like that.
So Alyssa was 17 at the time that she went missing.
Yes.
Sarah was 12.
Yes.
So you knew Sarah from when she was little, child, to preteen years.
I still know Sarah, but yes, from the time she was an infant.
But you interacted the most with Sarah. You didn't interact with Sarah during her teenage years much.
Not very much at all, no.
Hey, ma'am, I just have a few more questions about your relationship with Alyssa. And again, if you need a break, let me know. So you met Alyssa when you were neighbors.
Yes.
You spent a lot of time with her throughout your childhood.
Yes.
And eventually Alyssa moved,
Yes.
but you remained in contact.
Yes.
And you and Alyssa experienced a traumatic event together during the summer of 2000.
Can you please be more specific?
You and Alyssa had a friend named Stacy.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You were very close.
Yes.
And in the summer of 2000, Stacy committed suicide.
At the start of the school year, yes.
This is a very traumatic event.
Yes.
And you knew Alyssa since childhood, so you knew that Alyssa experienced a lot of grief over her lifetime.
Yes.
Her mother died when she was young.
Yes.
She didn't have a female role model.
Not in her family.
She didn't have a mother to care for her.
No.
Her biological father wasn't around.
Correct.
She didn't get along with her stepfather.
Correct.
Alyssa moved around a lot during her childhood.
Yes.
She lived in California,
Yes.
Montana.
Yes.
Alyssa went to 2 different high schools.
Correct.
She transferred to a new high school at the beginning of her junior year.
That sounds right.
You were very close with her despite all of that.
Yes.
You knew a lot about her personality, what she liked, what she didn't like,
Yes.
These questions are
activities that she engaged in.
Yes.
You knew Alyssa smoked a lot of pot.
I know that she smoked pot.
weird. Slide that one in there.
And you told the police that there was a time where you believed it was close to every day.
If that's what I said then okay. I don't recall now.
But if that's what you said to the police, then that would be
Yes.
your testimony here today as well.
That I told the truth then, yes.
You were also aware of Alyssa experimenting with other drugs.
I believe so, but no specifics.
And again, I know that this is a long time ago, but I'm relying on the police report here. And in the police report, you said, or during the police interview, you had mentioned that Alyssa tried acid a year before she disappeared.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm asking you if that's correct.
That's correct that I said that. I do not have that memory now, but it's been, 15 years since that interview?
And you wouldn't have lied in the interview, right?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Just as I won't now. That's why I'm not saying that I remember that now.
Okay. Just a moment,
She
Your Honor.
is coming across as truthful. Interesting line of questioning. Let's see if that wraps it up for her. What has the state benefited from this witness? That's what I'm trying to get at. What piece of evidence did she solicit, or maybe it is foundational for the next witness, which I believe will be the younger sister. Man, this is interesting. Yeah, 20 years ago, Rudy Patootie. That's a long time to remember anything.
Yeah, just a couple follow-up questions.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
I want to circle back to the letter discussion that we had earlier about the letter that you wrote for the police. Was that a letter that that you wrote with the understanding that it would be sent to the police?
I believe so.
Okay.
I only have memory of the letter from when I read it when the police interviewed me.
Okay. All right.
At that time, I didn't remember writing the letter either.
Okay.
That's interesting. Why would she not remember writing the letter at the time?
And Ms. Masterson, who was it that asked you to write the letter?
The defendant.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No.
Oops, sorry. That just happened. Let's see. Let's go to this right here. Hold tight.
You have no further questions.
There we go.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Mr. Bailey, any redirect?
Apparently, there's a button on my remote
So
control
you asked
that I should not be
a
pushing.
number of questions, very quick order, about Alyssa and a suicide,
Let's watch the immortals.
marijuana,
Can't do that.
and things of that nature. You remember that?
Yes.
Was Alyssa a depressed person?
No. Not that I remember.
Do you remember Alyssa having friends?
Yes.
And do you remember Alyssa having plans and things she wanted to do in her future?
Yes.
Do you remember Alyssa? You said Alyssa and Sarah fought,
Yes.
but do you remember Alyssa caring for Sarah?
Yes.
Do you
Yes,
remember
sorry.
Alyssa caring about Sarah's well-being?
Yes.
In your observations of Alyssa and Sarah, do you remember what would you describe Alyssa as trying to do for Sarah?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking.
The interaction between Sarah and Alyssa, what type of role did you observe Alyssa try to play for Sarah?
Older sister.
She was her big sister and as close to a mother as she had.
You were asked about a number of things that you were told the defendant was doing in trying to find Alyssa. Recall that?
Yes.
Who told you that they were trying to do that?
The defendant.
Did you have any knowledge of the defendant actually going out and doing those things?
Nothing that I specifically witnessed. I would stay at the house with Sarah.
How old was she at the time? How old was this witness when she was sort of babysitting Sarah?
And this letter that you wrote looking for Alyssa,
Yes.
do you remember if you were told what to put in the letter?
I don't remember actually writing it. From what is written, I imagine that a 14-year-old writing that letter was, guided on what the letter should say
Comes
to
objection.
elicit a response of trying to find her.
She was 14. Wonder if the letter is going to be submitted as evidence.
And you remember telling defense counsel that Alyssa moved a lot with her family.
That's the phrasing that they used.
And who was having Alyssa move so often?
Her stepfather.
Do you remember about when Alyssa's mother passed away?
I believe it was around 91, 92.
So are we talking about at least years prior to when Alyssa went missing?
Oh, many years.
They're thinking, seeing if they're done with the line of questioning.
And just to clarify, one of the questions I asked you was about various things that you were concerned about, either in the letter or that defendant was telling you that he was doing. When you said you were concerned that Alyssa may have been with an older man, who told you that was a possibility?
Her stepfather.
So is it fair to say that the information that you remember and the concerns that you had, the source of those was from the stepfather, the defendant? No further questions, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, any members of the jury have any questions for the witness? It appears that there are none. May the witness be excused.
Witness may, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you, ma'am. You may be excused.
Thank you.
Okay, what are we calling
And the
this?
state may call its next witness.
The coffer here.
Call Sarah Turney.
There it is. There's Sarah.
Ma'am, if you'll please come forward and provide your name to the clerk, she'll swear you in as well.
Well, usually there's a little less crossover between the witnesses. Oh, but Sarah is allowed to be in the court. Okay, she's one of the excluded on the list that's allowed to. So this will be the younger sister of Alyssa. She gets sworn in.
And ma'am, if you'll please take a walk up the ramp and have a seat on the witness stand here to my right.
Got the cough counter going to see if that's going to be a thing throughout this trial. This is probably going to be a longer witness. I'm not sure if we get to any other witnesses.
Mr. Bordino,
today.
you may proceed with your direct examination whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
Bordino.
Ms. Turney, can you tell us your name, please?
My name is Sarah Turney.
Sarah is S-A-R-A-H?
Yes.
Okay. There is a microphone there. You sound like you may be soft-spoken like I am, so if you can concentrate on that for me.
Okay.
Try not to fall asleep during the questioning.
How old are you now?
I'm 34.
And are you employed?
Yes.
What do you do?
I make podcasts for a living.
Alrighty.
That's cool.
I'm not even sure I know what a podcast is. Maybe everybody else does, but if you could explain exactly what it is you do.
Sure. I do a few different things. So I created my own podcast in part to help look for Alyssa. And I also host another podcast from Spotify where I'm just a host for them.
Alrighty. How long have you been doing that?
Since 2019.
She's an OG with the podcasts. That's cool.
Some of these questions may seem silly to you. I'm just trying to establish some background information. So, did you graduate from high school?
No.
Did you attend high school?
Yes.
Where did you go?
Paradise Valley.
So explain to us the makeup of your family. You,
I think her
Alyssa,
podcast is Voices for Justice,
the
says Samantha
brothers.
Terry.
Your dad.
Thank you, Samantha.
Just so we have a clear understanding of who's who.
Yeah. My dad married his first wife, I believe, in the 70s, Cheryl. And they had 3 children together, my 3 oldest brothers, Rhett, James, and Mike. And then my mother had Alyssa and John. John before Alyssa. Alyssa was the youngest before I came. Then my mom met my dad, and together they had me in 1988.
Okay. And obviously you wouldn't have known it, but today, do you know where it was they were living when you were born?
Yeah, Villarita.
Okay. An address, a house on Villarita?
I know the full address if you'd like it.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, 2954 West Villarita.
And where was that located? Here in the valley?
Yeah, the west side of Phoenix.
All righty. Do you know how long you lived at that address?
It was until 6th grade. I went to 6th grade at a different school.
So, 1st through the 5th grade?
Yeah, and then I guess I would say first through fourth grade, and then we moved to that one house that was kind of around the corner, but in the same neighborhood. And then from there, for sixth grade, we moved to the east side of Phoenix.
So, all right. So first through the fifth grade, did you attend the same elementary school?
Except for the portion where we lived in Montana for about 6 months, yes.
All righty. While you were here in the Valley, first through the fifth grade, what elementary school did you attend?
Sunrise Elementary.
Now, Alyssa was older than you, right?
Yes.
And by, is it 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, about 4.
All righty. So when you were in the fifth grade, do you know what school Alyssa was attending?
I believe Deer Valley.
Okay.
I believe it was Deer Valley, Barry Goldwater, and then Paradise Valley.
3 different high schools?
Yes.
That's tough, switching high schools.
When she changed schools, was it because y'all had changed addresses? If you know.
Well, and that's where the confusion comes in because I just changed the school the one time. So I wasn't made to change schools necessarily when she was. So I'm not quite sure what that situation was.
All righty. So you said that y'all lived in Montana for a period of time?
Yes.
How old would you have been?
6 or 7. It was second grade, I believe.
And how long did you live there?
Less than a year.
And then you moved back to the Valley?
Yeah, right back to that Villarita house.
All righty. And have you lived in the Valley ever since?
Yes.
Was there ever a time when you and Alyssa and the brothers were all living in the same house?
Yes, when we were younger. And then periodically a brother would come in or out, for a few weeks or months if they needed somewhere to stay for a variety of reasons.
Now, in May of 2001, where were your brothers living? I don't mean the address, but...
They were all out of the house.
And were they living here locally?
Rhett, Mike, and John were. I believe James was already out of the state, possibly on the East Coast at that time. He's moved around a bit.
All righty. So in May of 2001, where were you going to school?
Explorer Middle School.
And you're living, at that point in time, when Alyssa goes missing, you're living at that address on 34th Street, correct?
Yeah, the 17217.
And who lived there with you at that time?
Just my father and Alyssa.
How would you get to school?
So I was supposed to go to it when we moved so many times, so I'm sorry if it's a little confusing, but we moved and I was supposed to go to a different middle school for 8th grade, but my dad contested it and called the school and made sure I could go to the same school. So he would end up driving me to a bus stop, and then the bus would take me all the way to school. So he dropped me off like in our old neighborhood.
All righty. And then how would you get home?
I would, again, be taken back by the bus to that bus stop, and then he'd come pick me up in his vehicle.
Was he working at that time?
No.
Now, Alyssa, how would she get to school?
So it was usually by vehicle, as far as I remember. The walk was just long enough, and it was just warm enough that we usually didn't walk to Paradise Valley. But it just depended on the day.
So if she didn't walk to school, how would she get there?
Our father.
Did Alyssa drive?
No.
Were you ever with her when she did drive?
Yes.
So it sounds like maybe she knew how to drive.
She knew how to drive, but she was afraid to before she was gone.
All right. To your knowledge, did she ever obtain a driver's license?
No.
No, she didn't?
No, she did not obtain a driver's license.
All righty. I want to take you back to, well, first of all, for background, like, what's the first memory
This guy does sound like a therapist.
that you have of Alyssa?
Probably dancing in our kitchen to, it used to be Power 93 back then. It's Power 98 now. Just dancing in our kitchen to Boys to Men.
How old do you think you were then?
Maybe 7, somewhere around there.
And we probably covered this already, but where would you have been living at that point?
At our Villa Rita home, that was our childhood home.
And at that point, were any of your brothers still living at home?
Yeah, I believe so. I think Mike specifically.
Now, if you need to take a break, let us know. So, your mom dies. How old are you when your mom dies?
I was 4.
And when your mom died, were y'all living here in the valley?
We went back and forth from California, but we came back to Arizona, and I believe that's where she finally died, yeah.
Okay. So, did you live in California?
For a short period of time.
And where did you live?
Redding, California.
Alrighty. Did in 2001, did you have an aunt or a couple of aunts? Your mom, would they be your mom's sisters living in California?
Her one sister, Lynette, yes.
Alrighty, Lynette. Is Lynette alive now?
No, she's since passed.
She lived in California.
Yes.
I get the feel this prosecutor
do you
has no
recall
idea
where?
where he's going with this
I believe it was
questioning.
Riverside, but she also, moved a few times over the years.
Did you know her?
No, not really. Especially before Alyssa went missing, we had no relationship with her.
So you and Alyssa had not, for example, your father hadn't taken you over to California and you spent time visiting with Lynette.
No, and the one time we tried to reconcile, she never showed up, so Alyssa and I were really upset and just didn't want to pursue a relationship after that.
Do you know when that was prior to May of 2001?
I can safely say within 2 years.
So you've obviously been sitting in court today, right? And the judge has told the jury that victim's family are allowed to stay in court. So you heard Miss Masterton's testimony, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember Shay?
Yeah, of course.
Do I understand that the two of you are you still friends?
Yeah, we keep in contact.
Now, do I have this right that she is a little older than you, but she was younger than Alyssa?
Yeah, Shay was right in between us.
Yeah, where's the evidence? Where's the questions that will...
So if I were to ask you, Mr. Bailey asked Shay to describe your sister. If I were to ask you the same question, what can you tell us about Alyssa?
Yeah, we definitely fought like sisters, but she was just really kind and protective. That was the biggest thing is, for as much as she would make fun of what I was wearing, she would make sure to fix my outfit before I went out the door. And I think it was a lot harder to see when I was a kid, the stuff that she did, how she made Christmas happen and birthdays happen. But yeah, Alyssa was happy and outgoing when she was outside of the house, I will say. She was just a really good big sister, and she definitely took on all those maternal duties, even if I didn't see it back then.
So as you look back, can you describe for us some examples of the things that she would do for you? You said like a maternal figure, if I understood what you were saying. Can you describe for us, what that would look like?
Yeah. I remember specifically one time we were supposed to go see the Nutcracker with our brothers.
Your Honor, I'm going to object relevance to relationships.
Sustained.
Well, you said you were
His brain, his wheels
possibly
are spinning.
had
He can't-
sister rivalry, but
He's stuck.
she did things for you. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
So tell us what Alyssa was. Just tell us what Alyssa was like.
Yeah. She was really kind. I remember that she always made sure that, like, she was always getting special gifts for her friends, always spending her money on other people. She was just really bubbly and outgoing, and she was really, really brave. Really brave.
Now, in the months prior to May of 2001, did Alyssa have a job?
Yes.
Where did she work?
Jack in the Box.
And
That's a fast
do you
food
recall
restaurant.
what sort of schedule she had?
It was after school, obviously, and then some weekends.
Do you recall, for example, how many days a week?
Not specifically. I mean, it was part-time.
So how would she get to work?
Our father. Or, I'm sorry, because the high school is right across the street from Jack in the Box, so if her schedule aligned, I believe she would just walk right over. It was, you just cross 40th Street and it's right there.
All righty. Did you ever visit her at the Jack in the Box?
Yes.
So what would you observe her doing there?
Working, mostly.
Yeah. What was her job?
I don't know what her exact job at Jack in the Box was. I think she did a little bit of everything. Drive through, helping people at the counter, cleaning tables.
And from what you observed, did she like her job?
Yeah.
Did you have a job when in May of 2001?
No, I did not.
Okay. And remind me,
She was
please, what
12.
grade were you in then?
7th grade.
And remind me so that would be like middle school?
Yes.
We used to call it junior high, but I mean, it's middle school, right?
Yeah, the same thing. 7th and 8th grade usually, I believe in Arizona, is a middle school or junior high.
Okay. And where was that school located in relationship to the house on 34th Street?
It was quite some distance away. It was, it's right next to Desert Ridge at Tatum and, Joe Max or Beardsley.
So I may have misunderstood. Is that where your father, the defendant, would take you to the bus stop?
No.
I'm getting
He would take me
tempted
to
to
the bus
speed
stop
this
in our
up.
old neighborhood, and that was closer to like 43rd Street and Bell. So about 10 blocks.
So how would you get to school in the 7th grade?
So that's what he would do, is he would drive me to that bus stop, and then that bus stop would take me to school.
All righty. What generally, let's assume that you had the normal school day. What time would you arrive in the 7th grade? What time would you arrive to school?
Yeah, Explorer started later, so I think it was 9 or 9:30, and then it ended at 3:30, I believe.
Okay,
And
give me just one
What
second.
about
We're going to speed this up
May
because
17th,
it's painful.
2001? Did you go to school?
So we can hear his audio
Yes.
here. Just one second. Let me get it.
Was that the last day of school for you that year?
Yes.
And was there anything special planned for the students?
Why
Yeah,
can't I
we went
see
on a
this?
field trip to Waterworld.
All righty. And do you recall what time you would have gone?
It was shortly after school began, so I believe we just came to
And
school at the
enter
regular
work
time and
mode.
got situated and got on the bus and went.
That particular day, did you see how Alyssa got to school?
No.
Do you have any recollection as to whether Alyssa was home when you went to school that day?
She was not there. Her school started much earlier than mine.
The field trip was over about what time?
It was about when we got out of school, so about 3:30.
Critter.
And
Critter
was anyone
just
supposed to
hit the
pick you
yellow
up?
whale.
Yes, my father.
there at the school?
Yes.
So when
Critter,
you got back
thank
to
you
the
so
school,
much.
Did he pick you up?
No.
Huge,
Was he there?
huge $100 super
So what
chat
did you
from
do?
Critter.
I walked home with my friends.
How far away from the school did they live?
It was like the next 2 or 3 blocks over, so it was really like maybe a 5-minute walk at most.
Could you have walked home from school?
I probably wouldn't have made it, especially in the summer. I mean, I think it's 3 or 4 miles, if
I think
not
it's a
more.
golden
so no.
whale.
I mean, I probably could have, but I wouldn't have.
Now, did you have a cell phone then?
No.
Whole pot of
Did
whales.
Alyssa?
Yes.
So you get to your friend's house, and
Critter
Did-
says,
did
just wanted to
someone
see the
come and
different
pick you
colored
up at
whale.
your
I
friend's
challenge you to join me.
Yes, my
Who's going to
father.
be first? Ivan? He's calling out Ivan. Thank
So
you,
if you-
Critter. Thank you.
what time was it that you think you got back from the field trip?
Back to the school or back to my friend's house?
I'm sorry, back to the school.
I think it was just about right on time. I think we were ready to go at about 3:30.
And then you walked to your friend's house.
Yes.
About what time do you think it was when you got to your friend's house?
No later than 15 minutes later, I would say. 3:45.
And then at some point, your father came in and picked you up.
Yes.
Had you called him, or
I don't recall. I think we just kind of knew that if I wasn't at the school, I'd be at my friend's house. It was something I did all the time.
Mr. Imbordino, you tell me when we're a good breaking point.
it's fine?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our afternoon recess a little early today because we're going to be ending a little early today. So you can leave your notebooks and your materials on your chair if you'd like. Please be back in the jury room not later than 3 o'clock, which is when we'll restart the afternoon session. Please remember the admonition. The jury is
See
now
if they have any
excused.
business or if the judge.
Oh, yeah. Gonna get it. Okay.
She gets to leave the witness stand as well. Judge has a little sip. See if they have any business to conduct here.
One of the pictures that the police took to the house.
And
When you lived there, because it's wood there.
this,
So whose room was this?
This is the master bedroom.
let me just say, this seems inappropriate. Can I call this out?
So, if I should, I'm going to show you some.
We have
Please be seated.
the prosecutor meeting with the witness without
Let the record show the
defense
presence of
listening.
counsel and the defendant. Jury's not present. Anything for the record from the state?
Well, she's still sworn
Anything
in.
for the record from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll see you at 3 o'clock. We are at recess.
Did that seem wrong to anyone else? No, we don't have to wait. We're going to skip this one. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to magically make time speed up. We're going to jump ahead. Okay, here we go. Back up, back up, back up. Not sure why it's doing that, but we'll fix it. Okay, and we're gonna play right here. Okay, it looks like everyone's taking their seats. Give us just a minute. We're gonna cut to there. I think we're about to. Break's over, guys. Sit down. Everyone, sit down. We didn't have a long break, but this is what we get. I have not. I'm listening for evidence, right? I want to see why they charged this guy. After so many years of the police basically ignoring it, why is he being charged now? He may be a creep. He may check all the boxes on the creep factor. But where's the evidence? And if there's, they say there's not a single piece of evidence that links that even says that she's dead. How did they get to that point?
We are back on the record in State versus Turney. Let the record show the presence of counsel, the defendant, and the jury. And the witness is back on the witness stand. Mr. Imbordino, you may resume your direct examination whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Okay, Sarah, I got a little ahead of myself. I'm going to back us up just a tad. You've already told us a little bit about Alyssa and how you saw her.
Can we count sniffs?
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah, I'll break to prepare this.
Remind me
You can't get
again
this
how
first
old,
question out.
you told us your first memory. I'm not asking you that again, but about how old were you? 7? Did you say 7 years old? Your first memory
Yeah.
of Alyssa?
Yeah, I'd say that's about right.
And so did you live with her from that point in time up until she disappeared in May of 2001?
Yeah, I lived with Alyssa my whole life.
I don't think I asked you this, but describe her personality to us.
Yeah, she was fun and bubbly and outgoing and sometimes a mean older sister. but it also depended on what setting she was in.
And what do you mean by that? What setting?
When she was outside of the house, she was a lot happier.
In those years that you've described living with Alyssa, was there a time that it changed, or was it always that way?
No, as far as I can remember, it was just always a bad relationship with Alyssa and my father, which caused just a lot of stress and tension.
Would you ever hear them argue?
Yes,
What would they argue about?
everything.
Critter, thank you very much. Appreciate the huge super chat. Congrats on the golden whale.
So
Good luck with the hubby. Hope everything goes well.
when you say everything, like what, for example?
I mean, it was a lot of criticism of Alyssa. It was a lot of, why aren't you doing A, B, and C in school? Why aren't you being nicer to Sarah? He wanted her to do more around the house, to cook more, to drive and do errands, picking up prescriptions for him, going grocery shopping, that type of thing. He never wanted her to leave the house.
While living at the various locations in here in the valley, let's just stick to the valley over the years, were you ever aware that phone calls coming to the house or going out from the house were being recorded?
Yes.
And how did you know that?
I was born into it. Ever since I can remember, that recorder was on the phone, or a version of a recorder.
And let's talk about the house on 34th Street. Where was that recorder set up?
On 17217?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, the monitor or the actual cameras?
No, let's talk about the audio recording for phone calls.
That was in the kitchen.
And where in the kitchen?
It was right by the phone.
And how were calls recorded? In other words, today we have digital recording. What was utilized at that point?
It was one of those old school tape machines where you could, every time you picked up the receiver, you could hear it click on really loud. It wasn't like a touch screen or anything. So I guess I'd describe it as like an old school recorder tape deck. It's about that big, rectangle.
So when you say that big, this young lady, the record needs, you're talking about a foot or so?
Maybe 9 inches to a foot.
All righty. You happen to remember what the brand was?
No.
And how, did you know how to insert the tapes?
Yes.
Can you describe that for us?
Yeah, you just press stop or eject. I can't remember if it was the same button. And then pop out, put another tape in.
Was there only just a tape in the recorder?
No. There were also blank tapes next to the recorder.
Whose responsibility was it to update the tapes? Did everyone have to make sure the
Someone
tape was
would
working?
call. In other words, an incoming call. You mentioned that you could hear a click. Could you hear what that person was saying?
Well, the click came as soon as you picked up the receiver, the machine would click on. But yeah, you could still hear them through the receiver.
What if somebody was leaving a message? Let's say so it's in the kitchen. Let's assume you were, in the kitchen doing dishes, doing something either you didn't want to answer the phone when it rang or couldn't for some reason, and someone left a message. Could you hear them talking, if you recall? You understand what I'm asking you?
No, I'm sorry. Hear them talking through the recorder device?
Yes.
I believe we had a separate voicemail machine at that time.
Okay.
So separate machines, or possibly it was on the phone at that point for voicemail. But for the recorder, you had to physically pick up the phone for it to record. So I do not believe that it recorded voice messages.
Okay. So if somebody called, well, for example, let me assume there are recorded calls. What I'm trying to understand is you pick up the phone, the way you're describing it, the recorder would start.
Yes.
And that's that clicking sound that you heard.
Yes. You could physically hear on the machine, because it was, and the machines varied throughout the years, but at least until up to that point, it was the older machines where you could physically hear the click.
Now, and let's...
This isn't spy gear. This is like...
But that wasn't just at that house. That was at other homes that you lived in.
Every home we lived in, yes.
Now, the house there on 34th Street, where you were living when Alyssa went missing, Were you aware of any video surveillance cameras?
Yes.
How did you know that they were there?
One was very obvious, the one on the carport by the door. That was very obvious. And then my father approached me about the hidden camera in the vent and told me about that.
Would you have known that it was there if he hadn't told you?
No.
Do you recall when that was that he told you approximately?
Within a year of Alyssa being gone.
So you were not aware of it until after she was missing?
No, I was aware of it before she went missing.
Okay. And I probably didn't ask the question correctly. So how did you become aware of it being in the vent?
My father told me. He said, look what I set up. This is to watch your sister.
All right.
And Alyssa was to not know.
Now,
Ooh.
may I approach the witness?
You may.
Yeah, I realize there's going to be some recordings and stuff coming in that are probably pretty damning, but they sure haven't led with anything that sets the stage.
If you could take just a moment to look at them and tell me if you recognize the. We're going to go through each one of them in a minute, but just go through them and see if you recognize what's being.
These look like still images, probably from the
Yes, this is the house
security
that
camera
Alyssa
of the house or
was last
something.
seen in.
Just I'd like to see him before she starts talking about him.
Yeah.
Just show me and I'll probably stipulate. Here.
Well, it's the one. It's where they were. It's not where the search warrant was. It's the search warrant.
Tammy, thank you for the stars. Appreciate it. It's taking forever to update on my screen. Appreciate you hanging in
You
there.
wanna move to admit
we hope
Exhibit
to have it
79.
back
Any
to
objection?
easy to
Okay.
watch soon.
Exhibit 79 is admitted. Ladies and gentlemen, when an exhibit is admitted, that means that it will be with you in the jury room during your deliberations.
Okay. Let's see. So for the record, this exhibit contains a number of images. Looking at, I'll refer to it as.
Oh, we're not
page
supposed
one.
to see the
It's not
gallery.
labeled as page one, but the first image. So what are we looking at here, Sarah?
That's the house that Alyssa last lived in.
With you and the defendant.
Yes.
Now, the car, well, okay. Assume for me that these photographs were not taken until 2008.
Comes an objection.
Okay? You weren't living there in 2008, right?
She can't speculate.
Correct.
You had moved.
Yes.
From where did you move to?
Directly across the street. From this angle, if you were looking out the front door of the other house, this is what you'd see.
All right.
They moved you right across
Do you
the
remember
road.
when you moved into this particular house?
Shortly after, this house?
Yes.
It would have been 1999, 2000.
All righty. And how many bedrooms did it have?
3.
Have a backyard?
Yes.
Was there a fence?
Yes.
Was there a back patio?
Yeah, I think like a concrete slab.
All righty. Now, as we look at this, I see it appears there's a front door. You see that?
Yes.
Did y'all utilize the front door?
No.
And the carport, since this was taken in 2008, can we assume that vehicle was not yours or your dad's?
Correct.
Did you know the people that moved into the home?
I'm sure I met them before, but no. At this time in 2008, no, I didn't know those people.
I can't remember if I asked you this. Do you know when you had moved across the street?
Shortly after Alyssa was gone.
So maybe in 2001?
That or 2002. It was shortly after.
So over here on the right-hand side, the carport, I see looks like there's a door to the far right-hand side. What was that?
That was a storage room. I believe the washer and dryer was in there.
The second image. I got to remember to stay close to this microphone. Do you see the open door?
Yes.
Where did that doorway lead to?
The kitchen, well, it was kind of in between. So the kitchen would be on the right, and then a small area where we had our dining table and the living room was to the left.
So when you're inside the house and the times when y'all are living there, you didn't use the front door, how would you exit the home?
Through this door.
Now, would you be able to tell us where the surveillance camera was mounted in the carport?
It was on that opposite side so that you could see this door, almost diagonal from it.
Alrighty. Third picture, what are we looking at here?
This is part of the kitchen, and where that table is about where we had our dining room table as well.
Alrighty. In this, now it looks like there's, I refer to it as French doors, but looks like doors leading to the backyard.
Yes.
Alrighty. In this particular image, would we be able to see where the phone recording device was located?
Yes.
Where would it have been?
Right in that corner where you kind of see the cord hang down. The whole phone and setup and everything was right there.
Right here?
Yeah. I guess wherever their microwave is, maybe if that's a microwave.
Okay. Below and kind of as you look at the photograph, to the right of the clock that's on the wall, right?
Yeah, right at that corner.
Here's a fourth photograph. Can we see more of the kitchen in this one?
Yes.
Now, other than the knowing that somebody else is living there, this property is not yours. Is the kitchen still laid out the same as when you lived there?
Yes, they appear to be the same counters and cabinets.
This particular door here to the right, what was that?
Mr. Bordino, you're off screen. You either need to go wider or move the picture up.
Okay, sorry.
We can't tell what we're talking about.
The door here on the right was what?
I believe it was a utility room. The washer and dryer may have been in there. I can't quite remember.
Now, in this image, again, are we looking at the kitchen?
Yes.
The
Thank you,
door that we
Tommy.
see here open, is that the doorway that led into the carport?
Yes.
And if you're standing at this kitchen counter, looking towards the wall where these two pictures are, what room would that have been?
That would have been the restroom.
Well, let me do it a different way. Let me go to the next image. What do we see here?
So on the right, that would be the main front door that we did not use.
Alrighty. What did you refer to this as? Living room or?
Yeah, the living room.
Now the camera that was in the vent, what room was that vent located in?
The living room.
And what are we looking at here?
Another angle of the living room.
Fireplace, was that there when you lived there?
Yes.
This door here behind the sofa that's located in this picture, what door did that lead to?
I believe it was the bathroom. I know where the bedrooms were, but I'm trying to remember. Yeah, that had to have been the bathroom.
So I think you told us earlier there were 3 bedrooms, correct?
Yes.
And how many bathrooms?
2, including the master.
So if this bathroom is that the master bathroom?
No.
The bedroom that you refer to as the master bedroom, who stayed in that bedroom prior to Alyssa going missing?
Our father.
Now, if you look at the top of this particular image, we're right over the bath door and near the fireplace, it looks like there's 2 AC vents. Do you see those?
Yes.
Do you know whether was the camera in one of those vents? Do you know?
Yes, and the one to the left.
This one here?
Yes.
The one over the bathroom?
Yes.
Thank you, Angie. Appreciate the stars.
So I want you
Erica,
to imagine
thank
for
you.
us that you're standing in that
You guys are
living
amazing.
room and you're looking up at that vent where the camera was located. Could you see the camera?
No.
Give me a minute, Judge. I need to count some pages here.
We have seen some cross-examination, Christy. The defense is, I think...
So for the record, I'm on the
better-
9th photograph.
better organized than prosecution. I think prosecution has good stuff. We just haven't got to it yet.
Now, what are we looking at here? What part of the house?
The hallway that leads to the bedrooms.
Were the 3 bedrooms on the same side of the house?
No. Well, I'm the same area of the house, yes.
So if you're standing looking down this hallway, Alyssa had her own bedroom?
Yes.
So what, keeping in mind, standing here looking to my left, this side of the image, which side, left or right, was Alyssa's bedroom?
To the left.
What about yours?
Also to the left.
In the master bedroom?
To the right.
Photograph number 10. Again, ignoring maybe the chairs, the barbecue unit. Do you recognize the backyard?
Yes.
The next image, which would be number 11. A view of the patio?
Yes.
And this particular window here, on the right-hand side, immediate where my finger is pointed, kind of looks like it's lined up with this tree. Where did that window go?
The master bedroom.
Where your father stayed? Correct.
Before Alyssa went missing, yes.
Yes.
He said correct. He whispered to her.
Next image, which I think is 12, again, another photograph of the backyard. Correct?
Yes.
And
Is that
the
correct?
so was there a gate back here that led somewhere?
No.
Final image, it looks like there was a gate, correct me if I'm wrong, that led from the backyard out towards the street.
Yes.
Do you recall whether was there a gate there when you lived there? Do you remember?
I can't remember.
And then
These
looks like
photos,
the address is on this beam.
the photos were in 2008,
Yes.
I believe. And so somebody else is living there. That's somebody
Now you
else's
told
car
us,
or furniture.
Sarah, that before Sarah went missing, your bedroom and Alyssa's bedroom were on the left-hand side of that hallway.
Yes.
Did that change after she went missing?
Yes.
When did it change?
Probably around when the new school year started.
So August or September?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And why did it change?
My father moved me into the master bedroom.
And where did he move to?
My old bedroom.
When you moved into the master bedroom, did he tell you why he was going to have you stay in that bedroom?
Yes.
What was that?
He didn't want to be accused of molesting me and having me walk around in the towel, so he wanted me to have my own bathroom.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor.
There's
What
an
is the
objection.
Again, this is 404B evidence. This is impeachment evidence. This witness has never mentioned this before. This is stuff that
I only need the basis of the objection. That's one
This
word.
is 404B,
hearsay, 404B.
hearsay.
The objection's overruled. The counsel, you may ask your next question.
Thank you. So when you got into the bedroom, was there any type of electronic equipment, or, for lack of a better word, in that bedroom?
Yes, the entire video monitoring system lived in that room.
And you mean for the surveillance cameras?
Yes.
Did you know how to operate it?
It operated like a basic VCR, but in terms of, I guess I knew how to put in a tape and press record, yeah.
So, am I understanding correctly that if you were going to have a tape recording the people walking out the door, for example, in the carport, it was a VHS tape,
Yes.
and it would be put into the equipment in the bedroom, the master bedroom?
Yes.
He hasn't cleared his throat today that I've heard. Might have to find a different thing to count in this trial.
Was there any particular reason why y'all didn't use the front door?
I can't think of a good reason. It was often blocked, but I mean, we used that front patio door since we moved in.
You talking about the carport door?
Yes, I'm sorry, the carport.
Okay. All right.
Okay, there's definitely some
When you
strange
say that
things
something
going
was
on in this house.
blocking the front door, like what would that have been?
Pieces of furniture. The last I remember was a bookcase.
Oh, that's rather permanent. It's not like you can move the chair out of the way and open the door.
Now, I want to go back to the May 17th. Sorry for jumping around.
Can you
So
mention
your-
this on
your-
slow speed?
Your father comes to your friend's house. How did you know he was there?
I can't recall if he called or if I just heard him out front or he came to the door, but it was sudden.
And did you get in the car with him?
Yes.
What kind of vehicle was he driving then?
A white truck.
So you get in the truck. Did you have a conversation?
Yes.
And what was it about?
He turned to me and said, "Your sister's not answering her cell phone," and he handed me his cell phone and said, "Can you try to call her?" And I tried.
Now, were you aware that Alyssa had a cell phone?
Yes.
You know how long she had had it?
Maybe for a year or so. Cell phones were still kind of not as common then.
So I take it this wasn't like we might call a smartphone today, right?
No, it was a Nokia. No internet capabilities
Was
as
it the
far as I
brick?
remember.
Or
Okay. At some point, I'll get to that in a minute, but at some point, did you take possession of that cell phone?
Yes.
So he tells you that Alyssa's not answering her phone, and does he hand you his phone
Yes.
to call? No answer.
No answer.
Did he tell you anything about what he and Alyssa had been doing that day?
No.
So where did you go from your friend's house?
We went home.
How long, whatever time of day it was, how approximately how long would it have taken you to get to back to the house on 34th Street?
Maybe about 10 minutes.
So what do you do when you get there? Where does he park the truck?
He parks in the carport.
All right. Any conversation along the way?
Not that I recall.
They say anything to you about picking Alyssa up early from school?
No.
Anything about having lunch with Alyssa?
No.
Anything about having an argument with Alyssa?
Not that I recall.
So you get to the house, what do?
I went right to Alyssa's room.
That bedroom on the left.
Yeah, it's the furthest one on the left.
And describe her room for us as it existed before she went missing.
Yeah, when you walked in, she had a queen-size bed. I think it was a queen or a full. It was pretty big. That was on the right. And then on the left-hand side was her dresser. And directly kind of in front by the window was this TV stand that she had painted and a TV. And then she had a makeup vanity to the left by her closet.
Did Alyssa use makeup?
Yeah.
Did you spend time in Alyssa's room when the two of you were living in the house together?
As much as I could, as much as she would let me in there. Yeah.
Okay.
good morning,
Did you
mother of
enjoy
three,
going into her room?
or mother of 32,023, one of the two. Good to have you here.
So you go into her room and describe what you see.
So you walk in, and I saw what looked like the contents of her backpack on the ground. It was a bunch of papers, as far as I recall. And then it's on a big room. So right to the left on her dresser, I saw the note and her cell phone right there on top.
Now, you said a backpack. So did Alyssa use a backpack?
Yes.
And routinely, I mean, would she take it to school with her?
Yes.
What would she keep in there?
I don't think she would have let me look. I probably would have gotten in big trouble if I got caught. So
Okay.
I couldn't tell you for sure.
All right.
A bunch of jelly pens, I'm sure.
Why do you say that?
She liked to draw a lot. So
Describe the backpack to us.
after all these years, I think I believe it was black. Probably a black JanSport. But I can't tell you for sure.
It's probably still
The
those backpacks
the
last
items
forever.
that you saw on the floor. What do you remember about them?
Just a bunch of papers.
You remember what they were?
No.
Like exam papers, school exam papers, or school books, anything like that?
I mean, they weren't drawings and it wasn't a diary, so yeah, it was like loose leaf papers. There might have been like a binder, or like a notebook, I should say.
Now, you mentioned that she had a makeup table.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, would you call it a vanity or?
Yes.
All right. So, did you notice anything missing from her makeup?
No.
You said you found a note. And I apologize, I don't have a copy of it with me real handy right now, but tell us again where this note was located.
On the top of her dresser.
And how did you come to see it?
I mean, it was at eye level, you know what I mean? So it was right there to the left, right by her cell phone.
Did you look at it?
Yes.
Without seeing it, and I'll show it to you, not today, but what do you remember about the note?
I remember, I believe, what it said. Would you like me to say that?
Sure.
I believe it said, Dad and Sarah, when you dropped me off at school today, I decided I really am going to California. Dad, that's why I took $300 from you. Sarah, you always said you wanted me gone. Now you have it. Alyssa.
Had your father dropped you and Alyssa off at school together that day?
No.
You said that her cell phone was there, correct?
Yes.
And was it next to the note?
Yes.
How did you said earlier that you actually had tried to call her cell phone yourself, correct?
Yes.
So when you get into the house, are you or your father still calling her cell phone number?
I was not. I don't recall it buzzing at all. It was just in plain view. There was nothing else on top of the dresser.
Do you remember seeing any kind of a particular piece of jewelry at all?
She left behind a lot of her jewelry, yeah.
Okay. Like what kinds of things that you recall?
Yeah, there were, quite a few things that her friends had made her mostly, because I always wanted everything Alyssa had, so I remember seeing it. There was a necklace that her friend made that had a mushroom inside. There was one that was like a Chinese symbol. All of the jewelry from our mom was still there.
In your interactions with your sister, were those things based on what you observed of her and the jewelry? Were they things that were important to her?
Yes.
The cell phone, were you ever with her when she used her cell phone?
Yes.
When would you see her with the cell phone?
When she had it, it was always with her.
Now, I think I asked you earlier, did you ever come into possession of that cell phone? And I think you said yes. How did that happen?
My father gave it to me shortly after she was gone.
And up until that point in time, you hadn't had a cell phone yourself?
No, my father would sometimes lend me his, but no, I did not have my own cell phone.
I know this is a long time ago, so you used the cell phone once she was missing. Did you call people on it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What I'm trying to get at here is, since we're talking about 2001, and I suppose some people didn't have a cell phone, but what could you do with it besides call somebody?
You could text and play Snake.
Snake. Okay. What's that?
I'm trying to remember now. I don't remember exactly how it works, but it's some game with a bunch of squares that make a snake, and you have to, I don't remember the rules of the game.
Okay. All righty. Now, did it have, so your dad gives it to you to use, right?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
How did you, did it have a passcode or a password or?
No.
Definitely was not a smartphone.
Your Honor, I know I asked for 3:45. I've got a bunch of pictures I need to show her and ask her about. I can't do it all in 5 minutes, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Sounds like this is a good breaking time.
I think so.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, due to a scheduling conflict, we're going to end a little early today. Remember, we are not going to be together tomorrow. So I will see you next on Monday, July 10. We're going to get a 10:30 start, so please do your best to get here in time for the 10:30 start. Have a nice weekend. Please take everything with you when you leave the courtroom. Please remember the admonition. The jury is now excused.
rise for the jury.
And you're free to step down.
Thank you.
Lots of whispering going on. The witnesses don't know where to walk through this courtroom.
Okay, I gotta get going.
Let's see if they have any business to conduct here at the end of the day.
We're excused.
Have not had any jury questions yet. Probably will at the end of this witness on Monday.
Please be seated. Let the record show the presence of counsel and the defendant. Anything for the record from the state?
Not right now, Judge, because I really need to get going. Monday, I'm going to ask permission to address the court on a ruling you made earlier today.
Oh, really?
Okay.
You'll either give me permission to do it or not. But I got to try to remember to do that Monday morning.
Okay. Anything for the record from the defense?
Not today, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Counsel, if you could be here at 10:15 on Monday and every day after that, I'd appreciate it. That way we can chat before the jury comes in if we need to. Have a nice weekend. We'll see you all Monday at 10:15. We are adjourned.
All right. That's how it ends. So, well, there's actually a little bit of hot mic and all that, but here we go. That's it. Okay. Let's see. Let me see if we can get the balance, the part we missed before. Do you want to go back and get the part we missed after lunch? Let's listen in just a little bit.
In regard to the objection during opening statements, the court has looked at the prior rulings.
This is right after lunch. We're going back to get the part we missed.
I didn't really find a ruling on point. There's a lot of rulings in this case. If you can point to one, I'm happy to consider it. But to the extent that the state is precluded from offering evidence to prove that a molest happened, the contract was ruled permissible. The contract has Alyssa affirming that the defendant did not molest her. The state is introducing in opening statements a statement of the defendant saying that he did not molest her. I don't find a basis for a mistrial. The request for mistrial is denied. In regard to the
third part, we need the time frame
testimony
for the third.
of the witness, Masterson. Any additional information about the time frame of the incident?
So just to clarify, Ms. Masterson says that the behavior that she observed, this behavior was constant beginning in preteen years and going into teen years. However, to follow up and try to get some more definite clarification from Ms. Masterson, she stated the most recent memory that she had was when Alyssa was maybe at Goldwater High School, which would have put it about 1.5 years to 2 years prior to the incident, Judge. Based on that, I told defense I would agree not to go into that area.
Okay. I think that resolves that motion. Anything else we can talk about before we bring the jury in? Are you going to use technology for your opening? Okay.
I love technology.
I use technology. One less thing to worry about.
Do you want to watch the first 15 minutes of the, it's sped up, but it's going to be the defense opening statement that we missed. This is what the cameraman forgot to transmit initially. Jury's going to come in. I think we're going to watch it just for completeness. I think it's appropriate. Is he in jail now? I believe he's held without bond, or there's a huge bond that he hasn't been able to meet. One of the two. So yes, I think he is in custody. He already served his time and he got out for the explosives charges when they searched his house and found lots of weapons and explosives. Karen, I don't think they have any evidence that she is dead other than the lack of evidence that she's alive.
Oh, what is it? Oh.
Okay, the delay is weird, so I'm getting people saying yes, yes, no, no, no. So I'm not sure which question it is. A little bit of a delay. Jury's coming in. Welcome back. He did 7 years on those charges. Carolyn, this is a bizarre case. This guy used to be a sheriff's deputy. He's charged in the murder of his stepdaughter. Apparently he had a favorite daughter and a less favorite daughter. And the less favorite daughter went missing. And
We are back on the record in State versus Turney. Let the record show the presence of counsel, the defendant, and the jury. Mr. Jackson, you may proceed with the defense opening statement.
On May 17th, 2001, between 1 and 5:30, Alyssa left a note and left her family home. Michael and his youngest daughter came home between 5, 7 o'clock. They found the note in her room. Her room wasn't its normal tidy self. Sarah had noticed that the contents of her backpack were strewn kind of on the floor. Books, pencils, stuff like that. She had also noticed that some clothes were taken. She noticed some jeans, some shirts, underwear, socks, and the backpack was missing. She didn't notice any sign of a struggle. No furniture was moved, no blood, nothing was there. There was nothing on her father, any defensive marks that she noticed or anything. Couches in the living room, nothing was moved. Nothing was out of the ordinary except for Alyssa wasn't there. Now, you'll learn that Mr. Turney, Michael, he picked up Alyssa from school that day. They grabbed lunch and they went home to talk about the rules for the summer. He had some rules for her because she'd be kind of getting in trouble, doing some stuff that she shouldn't have done. So he had some rules for her that she was going to have to obey for the summer. She didn't like those rules. You're going to learn, you're going to hear from family members that Alyssa was a free spirit. She liked to have fun. She liked to party. She would drink. She would occasionally use drugs. She would smoke marijuana. Some people say she would even smoke it daily. She would smoke it on the way to school. Now,
no one can smell it.
These rules were set because of it. She wasn't happy. She did not want to live under these rules. She believed that she was 17. She could do what she wanted. And Mr. Turney said, my house, my rules. And so she stormed off into her bedroom after the argument. And that was the last time that Michael Turney ever saw his daughter, Alyssa. Now, you will hear that he went and picked up Sarah from her friend's house. There is some confusion on when that was. Some people will testify that maybe that was 3, 4:30. There's some phone records that might suggest that some of these calls happened between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, but it's between that time. They get back to the house. She's not there. Starts to panic. You can hear evidence that Michael called her boyfriend. He called her friends. He called family. He went to her work. He went to places where he might be able to find her. He called her cell phone. That's when they found the cell phone. Either Michael or Sarah found that cell phone in her room somewhere. When they called it, they could hear it vibrating. That's how they knew that she didn't have her phone. He even called PPD, Phoenix Police Department. He called. He was imploring them to come take a report. He was talking to an aide. And it wasn't for a couple days that a Detective Schoenfelder finally made contact with the Turney family. Again, that first night, Michael was up, calling people, calling friends, calling family. That happened the next day. He was doing the same thing. He was driving around. You're going to hear from Sarah. You're going to hear from...
Sorry.
To ask the Census Bureau to correct.
That's it. That's the part we missed. What are we watching after this today? Greeners, this is all we had on the schedule for today. So the part we missed, that was basically the first 15 minutes or so, was what was cut out, and we watched that at the end because the cameraman had to rebroadcast it at the end because they missed it. Let's see. Let me back up here. All right, it was short and sweet. The defense closing was rather short. We've seen all of it now. After the objection, there was very little left to do. Here's what we can do today. First of all, it is Friday. I would like to still see all of you at the podcast tonight. It's going to be on these same two channels. It's going to be on Facebook and it's going to be on Rumble. I can't put it on YouTube right now because, well, we're working out the copyright strike. Depending on how you interpret the rules, I can't live stream at all on YouTube while we're working that out, while there's an active strike. So me using one of my other channels for something other than our regular show, that still might be frowned upon by YouTube. So I want to follow the rules as closely as I can. Are you in trouble with YouTube? Yes and no, Laura. I do have a copyright strike against my channel that I'm working out with the individual who placed the copyright strike. I'm actually trying to call them today to discuss that because they're not responding to the emails. But if we can get it worked out, then it's good. If we cannot, it's either a 90-day suspension, that's huge. I cannot stress how huge that is. A 90-day suspension, or it would be I could fight it legally, basically challenge them to take me to federal court over it. Don't like that option. First of all, because it puts the decision in someone else's hands, and you might have a judge who rules one way or the other way. I'm not sure, and it also puts everything I have at risk. So anyway, I'll send them some pickles, Ashley, and then it will be all good. So don't worry. YouTube is not the problem. YouTube, the company, is not the problem. This is what they have to do under the law. So I'm just trying to. If they don't respond in 10 days, isn't it gone? Lee, yes, that works. Basically, if I challenge them and say, so sue me, which is basically what you're saying. You're saying, I have the right to use this under fair use, so sue me if you think otherwise. And then I believe it's 7 to 10 days, and then it disappears. Or they sue me, and then I go to federal court. Yes, we've got Sarah Boone coming up, so Sarah Boone's going to be here as well. Hopefully we can get this sorted out before her. So. Yeah, I know who it is. Don't worry. Yes, I always try to work things out. I'm a reasonable person. Gail, no. I'm not trying to sick you guys on anybody. As a matter of fact, I don't think that would help. But I think what happened was while we were live streaming on that last day, there was a hot mic moment where a cameraman may have gotten in trouble for broadcasting audio that when he said that his audio was off. And we had the audio. It was available. It's what anyone in the courtroom could have heard. And we shared the hot mic. There was not any, inside negotiations, anything. It was not anything that's excluded from, specifically excluded from broadcasting. So, but it did probably embarrass them. And then things went downhill from there. So anyway, Sarah Boone on the 11th of July is her hearing. Then the 24th of July is when she starts the actual case. So that's going to be good. ZZ says, I feel like I'm missing some chat. That's because I'm following both in Rumble and on Facebook. I should probably preface each comment with which side I'm quoting from so you don't get confused. The shoe thing, Rudy. I think that's what started it. The 400 pairs of shoes and the sumo wrestler and the hockey. I think that's the problem. Anyway, awesome. So thank you very much. I'm going to try to take care of that. I might also go hang some, because it's getting hot. It's getting almost close to 90 degrees, so it's almost time to go out and work outside and sweat to death. Anyway, that's good. Anyway, it is Friday. We hope to be on tonight, regular time, 8 o'clock or maybe 8:30. I'm not sure. I'll check with Thomas. I'll post the links. They'll be both here on Facebook and on Rumble. Please do share them with your friends. Make sure we can all meet up here again to go over some fun things tonight. I don't even know what Rumble is. Am I old, says Laura? No, you're good. Facebook's good for you. That's great. It works for me as well. It is what it is, and I'm working through it. Hopefully we can get it resolved right away. So that's all it is. Pray for me. Appreciate the good thoughts. We need that. Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone who gave massive super chats today, as well as many stars. You guys are great. That allows me to continue doing what I love doing, which is this, going live every day. Hopefully we'll be back on YouTube, be able to do it very shortly. But either way, thank you very much. Tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better, and please stay safe till we go live again at 8:30 p.m. tonight. We'll watch the post. We'll put the post up at the time for the podcast. It's going to be great. Thomas and I are going to be live again with the Not Relevant podcast. We will post it after the fact, just like we'll post this over on YouTube for those people who aren't able to join us on either of these two channels. We do want to keep them in the loop so they don't stay completely uninformed about what's happening. But we'll get this posted right away, and that's about it. Thank you, guys. Thank you. We will see you tonight. Have a fantastic day. For those that don't join me tonight, have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday for those guys. Thank you very much. We'll see you.